All right. Hello, everyone. We're asking, what does meaningful collaboration actually look like in today's school libraries? So, welcome. In this video, we're going to give you a backstage look at the findings from our national Delphi study on school librarian collaboration. Susan and I will introduce the new collaboration model, and Jessie and Rachel will bring it to life with examples of authentic, innovative partnerships that are transforming student learning. We hope you'll leave inspired with ideas you can put into practice right away. So, we're thrilled that you're here. And since this session is a bit of a backstage pass to collaboration, we thought we'd start by introducing the band. I'm Pam Harland. I'm a professor at Plymouth State University, and I had the privilege of working with an incredible team on this national Delphi study exploring collaboration in school libraries. First, Susan Ballard. Many of you know Susan as a leading voice in school librarianship. She is the former school library director in Londonderry, New Hampshire, past president of AASL, and an author and researcher whose work has influenced school librarians across the country. Jessica Gilchrist is a librarian in New Hampshire at Bedford High School and New Hampshire's School Librarian of the Year in 2019 and the winner of New Hampshire's 2026 Virtual School Library Award. She's known for creative and innovative partnerships with teachers and students. And she has generously agreed to help us connect the ideas from our study to what collaboration actually looks like in practice at her school. And Dr. Rachel Small is both a researcher and an elementary teacher librarian in Burlington, Massachusetts. During our study, she represented the practitioner perspective, continuously grounding our work in the realities of school librarians and classroom partnerships today. So now that you've met the band, this is today's set list. To start, Susan will give us some background about what we already know about collaboration, and then I'll share a brief overview of the study we conducted in 2025. From there, Rachel and Jessica will share real examples of collaboration in their practice, and we'll end by sharing our model and ideas for setting goals for the future. We ask that you follow along or grab the link and review the slides later. If you're watching this with others, we included discussions and activities, so be sure to pause the video on these slides. We'll give you little tips on when to pause. But this will give you access to the slides themselves. So, what is it that we already know about school librarian collaboration? Susan is going to give us a mini lit review.
Hi, everyone. We're going to start with this, as Pam said, a bit of history. Way back in the 1900s, Dr. David Lercher created a research-based taxonomy of school library collaboration to determine and measure a librarian's role, power, and influence on their schools. He updated it in 2000 and then in 2005. Dr. Patricia Montiel overall adapted this taxonomy and created a theory of school librarian collaboration. Their work has been incredibly instrumental for all of us. You might not know their names, but if you've ever teamed up with a teacher, co-taught a lesson, or connected your work to student learning, you've been putting their ideas into action. All of the texts that we cite are included in our reference list on the final slide of this presentation. So most of us are familiar with the school library impact studies conducted by Keith Curry Lance, Dr. Ross Todd, Dr. Carol Coulthau, and others over the years, which are a collection of studies that found positive correlations between the presence of a full-time certified school librarian and student test scores, especially reading scores on standardized tests. And here's the important shift. We all know that it's not the presence of a school librarian that makes a difference. It's what they are doing, curating, engaging collections, offering reading suggestions, and teaching information literacy skills that makes the difference. What's new and exciting is that more recent evidence clearly demonstrates that when school librarians collaborate with other educators, those students' test scores get amplified even more. That one word, collaborate, is what we are examining here. If your school is focused on measuring real data and improving reading scores, school librarian collaboration is an imperative. We also want to ground those ideas in our national school library standards. As we all know, one of the 6 shared foundations is collaborate, with a key commitment that states work effectively with others to broaden perspectives and work toward common goals. We included collaborative highlights from this part of the standards that especially illustrate the influence of school librarians on their learning communities under the domains of think, create, share, and grow. According to research, and we can imagine you see this in your own practice, there are other factors that impact collaboration. If your school has a culture of collaboration with common planning time and administrative support, it will be much easier to enact collaboration. Also, our own dispositions, how we act around others, contribute toward collaboration. If we are open, trustworthy, and clear communicators, we have increased chances of successful collaboration. So let's take a minute to start filling out your collaboration bingo card. If you are using the slides, you can click on the link. If you're watching the video, you can use the bit.ly link or the QR code. This activity is about reflecting, not really winning, and it's a nice way to notice patterns and look for small steps you could take to move towards better collaboration. We also have a couple of questions for you to think about or discuss. What makes collaboration harder in your school? And we have another question that connects to this.
This is the next question.
What helps collaboration happen anyway, even when conditions are not ideal? You might want to pause the video here and discuss these 2 questions with your colleagues or reflect on them yourself.
All right. I'm going to talk very briefly about how we conducted this study and then share some of our findings. In ancient Greece, people traveled to seek the wisdom of the oracle at Delphi. A Delphi study works the same way, but instead of asking an oracle for answers, we asked a panel of expert librarians. We recruited 38 leaders in school librarianship from across the country. We put them through a rigorous process of 3 rounds where we gathered their perspectives, analyzed and refined their insights, and moved towards consensus. The goal was to uncover their collective wisdom on the complex and multifaceted topic of collaboration. The panel started by answering an open-ended survey about collaboration. We then took that data, analyzed it, and presented it back to them. We had them vote on whether they agreed with the statements or not, and also explain why they agreed or disagreed. In round 3, we took that data, analyzed it, and they voted again until we all reached strong consensus on the final models. Finally, we brought all of their ideas and opinions together, and through robust, systematic data analysis, we developed a definition, a model, and rubrics for school librarian collaboration. Our paper was published in December in the peer-reviewed journal, The Learning Hub. If you'd like more details, we have a link here and also at the end of our slides. What this really means is that the findings we're about to share are built on solid collective agreement from a panel of experts. So we're going to start with the foundational finding, the definition of school librarian collaboration that we developed with the panel is an educator to educator partnership to enhance student learning through complementary expertise. It was important to the panel that school librarians are defined here as educators, and the collaborative process is with other educators. We highlighted here that the goal of this partnership is to enhance student learning. And the key ingredients are right here in the second part of the definition. School librarian collaboration develops over time and is built on mutual trust, shared goals, and open communication. It's crucial for us all to understand that this doesn't happen overnight because we're told to collaborate or we want to collaborate. It takes time to build trust, to understand each other's goals, and to develop all of this with clear and open communication skills. These are the final levels of collaboration that emerged. This slide gives us the whole picture at once. We like thinking about these levels as a bridge or a staircase to greater impact on student learning and built on the foundation of the definition that we just shared. This continuum communicates growth and progression over time. However, the levels at the top are not better than the other levels. They're just different. The lowest levels on the continuum are more operational and can be done with little external support. The levels at the top require more environmental and cultural support. We're going to talk more about these supports in a bit, but first we want to jump into the specific levels. So we're going to zoom in a little bit more right here. Keep in mind this gold bar on the left. This is the key to the whole thing. The further up the continuum we go, the greater the impact is on our learners. So that is the selling point on moving up this continuum. From the bottom to the top, the 7 levels start with number 1, autonomy, and they go up to level 7, assurance. This slide contains the definition of each level, and here are the examples for each level. We're going to zoom in and talk about the specific levels, starting at the bottom. The operational levels are these first two. These levels can be done with not a lot of external support. Level 1 is autonomy, where everyone is doing their own thing. The librarian and educators are working independently and also sharing or scheduling resources. It's like when a class comes to the library to check out books or use technology, but the librarian was not involved in planning beforehand. We've all had this happen. Level 2 is curation. Now the librarian provides resources based on a teacher's request, like when you pull a cart of books or create a digital resource list for a class based on a teacher's request or even a comment in the lunchroom. We've all done this level before too. These are the essential, like the everyday things that happen in our school libraries, and real collaboration is here, but it's just getting started. There are 3 instructional levels. These levels require more support, and as the title indicates, they introduce instructional elements. You move from being a supportive colleague, like in the first 2 levels, to being an instructional partner in these levels. Level 3 is contribution. This is where the librarian contributes to instruction with lesson ideas or direct instruction. You might give book talks, teach source citation, or demonstrate how the databases work at the start of the school year. It's not directly in conjunction with current course content. Contribution is often just in case type instruction. Level 4 is coordination. The librarian and educator align what they teach, but teaching is still done separately. Here you might conduct a read aloud in the library tied to course content, or introduce a new digital tool to directly support work being done in a class. We're working together, but separately. And level 5 is integration. The librarian and educator share instructional responsibilities at this level. They plan and teach together. For example, you're planning and teaching a research unit with another educator. Integration is sort of typical collaboration. And the top 2 levels are the strategic levels. These take a bit more planning and support. Level 6 is partnership. Now the librarian and educator co-plan, co-teach, co-assess, and reflect together. In this case, you co-lead a research unit, sharing instructional responsibilities, including planning, assessing, and reflecting. And the top level is assurance. This is a bit different from the other levels. This is where you go from impacting one classroom to impacting the entire school. Assurance is when the librarian is involved in instructional planning across the curriculum. Um, Collaboration between school librarians and educators is a school-wide norm at this level, and every learner is impacted in some way at some time. For example, the librarian works with educators across grade levels or content areas to ensure every learner experiences meaningful, consistent, and library integrated instruction. This doesn't mean every student in your school every year completes a huge research project with you and another teacher. It does mean that at least once during their time at your school, like for instance, if you're a high school librarian, at some point during their high school career, those students, all of them, had a meaningful research project with you. Perhaps an 11th grade US history research project is done collaboratively with you and the history teachers. Assurance means that you didn't just do that project at that level with the AP US history class. You made sure that every single 11th grader got that level of collaborative instruction. Assurance takes time, support, and leadership. But this is the benchmark for deep systemic change, and it has the greatest impact on student learning. We're going to talk a little bit about how to put this into action. The panel shared these all important necessary conditions for collaboration to succeed. This is the ideal environment on this slide. The environmental and cultural conditions are closely related. For example, administrative support directly connects to a school-wide culture of collaboration. If your administrators are not in support of collaboration, the school-wide culture will not be collaborative. Having common planning time usually stems from administrative support and having shared vision goals for student learning. The dispositional conditions are different. While environmental and cultural elements may not be in your control, your dispositions are. Specifically, we take action to collaborate. We don't just wait for someone to ask for help. We also need to be trustworthy, curious, and visible. All dispositions we could all focus on more. But we can't wait for the perfect environment. These are the actions the panel developed that librarians can take to start building momentum, no matter what your current environment looks like. Any one of you can do any one of these actions to increase collaboration at your school. Knowing your environment and culture will lead to choosing the next steps you take. These ideas range from direct outreach, literally stopping by and having a conversation with someone, to using snacks, humor, and positivity to build approachability. Pretty simple stuff. You can keep a bowl of chocolates in your office for anyone who stops by to see you. Some ideas are obvious, like attending meetings, knowing the curriculum, offering professional development. And some ideas are less obvious, like creating a menu of services to make collaboration easy and taking risks by trying something new. They all involve building relationships and trust by listening, sharing, being flexible. Collaboration requires that we take some initiative. It's not about waiting for educators to come to you. So, what is one collaboration action that you could try in the next month, even if conditions are not ideal? As you reflect on this question, keep in mind that collaboration is developmental, right? We talked about that with the definition. It takes time and it takes iterations. It looks different in different schools. And movement at any level matters. Just moving up a little bit really has an impact on student learning. You can pause the video here and discuss this question with your colleagues or reflect on them yourselves. So we're moving on to the exciting reality of what collaboration looks like in schools. Rachel is going to start.
Hello. We developed a rubric practitioners can use to share with their colleagues and administrators and use in their own planning and goal setting. I've already shared it with my administrators and colleagues as well as used it to write my goals for this past school year. We made the seventh level assurance as an option to add to other levels because we saw that librarians could contribute with a single educator, an entire grade level, or a single subject area. Here's another version of a possible practitioner rubric that includes evidence or examples to place each level in practice, as well as reflective questions and checklists that include impact, conditions present, next steps, and goals. We also included a link to the rubrics with a Creative Commons license that you are welcome to use, share, and adapt. Use the bit.ly link or click on the link if you have a copy of this presentation. Now I'm going to show you some of my examples of elementary school collaboration. First, I have two disclaimers. I'm grateful that Pine Glen Elementary School, the school I work in, has the culture of collaboration after they got to know me. Say it took about 3 to 5 years to really feel like I belonged. And I know I'm very lucky to have a responsive schedule rather than a fixed schedule, especially at the elementary level. I do drive over 2 hours a day, often in grueling traffic, to reap this benefit. To organize my ideas, I created an outline. You can find the link in our notes for this slide called Rachel's Outline. So I divided all the levels by using an example of assurance and not assurance. In autonomy, the example of assurance is the Burlington Public Schools Science Center presents content to whole grade levels. I suggested they use the Library Learning Commons for all grade level activities because it's larger than most classrooms, but it's still not huge. I'm not asked to contribute or help other than finding a good time to use the space. Not assurance. A second grade teacher often wants her students to access books on habitats beyond the information found in our databases, online books, and the classroom library. So she brings her students down for about 30 minutes. I'm not asked to contribute or to be involved in the planning other than to display our books on habitats and help students find them. My example of assurance with curation is the fifth grade team asked me to find some digital resources for the CKLA end of unit writing assignment. CKLA is our new Science of Reading curriculum. The fifth grade teachers provided me with a list of sea creatures and organisms that students need to learn how they survive and contribute to its ecosystem. I compiled a Google Doc. The table of contents feature is extremely helpful. I use it all the time. There was minimal joint planning, yet it was extremely effective for our students in their research. Not assurance. Before CKLA, when our first grade readers were tiered, the teacher with the lowest readers asked me to show her students how to find just right chapter books. I didn't create a leveled reading section because I believe being passionate about what is being read is way more important than any reading level. Instead, I created an early reader chapter book section, emphasizing series that include Geisel winners that our kids love. I put different series in their own bins and strategically placed them to be at eye level for most first grade students. My example of assurance for contribution is for exposure. Every month, our fifth grade students are asked to read a free choice book with a different genre. When each class comes down, I give them book talks and help them pick out just right books. This is in addition to their responsively scheduled library time. Not assurance. A classroom teacher asked me to set her second grade students up with their Sora accounts, I pushed into her classroom to teach her students in front of her so she could start to use Sora as well. Assurance for coordination. Every fourth grade and kindergarten classroom is paired with reading buddies every year. I gather books to correspond to each animal they study and review our databases with the fourth grade students who help teach the kindergartners how to use Pebble Go. I teach the fourth grade students how to cite their sources. I pop into the classes to help, but the content is taught separately. Not assurance. Our one fifth grade teacher, and I teach a unit of poetry together. However, we teach it separately. I'm able to teach poetry the way I loved to when I was a classroom teacher, using Sharon Creech's Love That Dog to help students fall in love with poetry classics and Hate That Cat to teach poetic devices. Then I use Nancy Atwell's Lessons That Change Writers to help students brainstorm, draft, revise, and edit their poetry. To culminate the project, students record themselves reading their poems on VoiceThread. Integration. My example of insurance is the entire fourth grade creates an immigration biography project. This is co-taught by the classroom teachers and me. The fourth grade team and I compiled a list of Pebble Go Next and Britannica resources to include possible immigrants for students to choose to research. The classroom teachers focused on brainstorming, while I focused on note-taking and using Canva to capture information about their self-selected immigrant as well as citing sources. Not assurance. I worked with one fourth grade teacher to help students find books, databases, and the National Park Project Service.gov website to collect information and cite their sources. The classroom teacher and I created a mentor text, and the students published their work with Book Creator. There's an example in the notes. An example of assurance with partnership is the goal for the kindergarten and library Five Senses Poetry Project was for all kindergarten students at Pine Glen to hear, write, illustrate, and then publish poetry relating to the five senses, in addition to science and ELA content. Classroom teachers and I had special read alouds. We taught students to organize their writing with a graphic organizer, as well as to write a poem about one of the five senses. Students drew a picture to accompany their poem via drawing pad. There is a YouTube video of the published poem in the notes. And my example of assurance is Sarah, a fourth grade teacher, and I co-taught a year-long blogging unit of study with the purpose to give students an authentic audience to read their writing, to motivate them to write, as well as to help them improve as writers, because the more they write, the more they liked to write, and the better writers they became. Outside of writing time, Sarah and I would utilize the comments features of Google Docs to add positive as well as constructive feedback to assist students throughout the writing process. And that blog can be found in the link on these notes. And here's a little video.
Whoops, sorry. Do you want me to
Oh
play
yeah.
it?
No, you don't have to play it, but
Okay.
you can play it if you want later.
Jessica, you're up.
All right, thank you. So to start off, I'm showing here four different examples where I have created things that teachers can access autonomously. The first in the top left are the required novels that we read in our school in every format that they're offered in. So teachers can independently find if we have a video, an audio book, a digital book of that required reading. I collaborate with my digital learning specialist as much as possible, and we do create a newsletter together that teachers can then access independently. In the top right, you can just quickly see a bulletin board that teachers can access for accessing various resources and tools. And then when they need to come down to the library and do a book pickup, we distribute textbooks from our library. They can do that independently, and we can really easily get those books out into the classroom. So here you can see I've curated different topics for a class. A lot of times a teacher will share an assignment with me that the class is doing. I create a research guide for that class on that topic, and then the students are able to access that independently when they are doing their research. Here on my library website, you can see there's lots of different topics on this page, and this is general support that is offered to classrooms. And so some teachers will teach this independently. Some teachers will ask me to come in and co-teach. Some students will access this independently, but it's all curated there as general support for the building to be able to access however they need. This is an example of coordination where this really came from student and teacher, educator need. And so it helps the entire building. And again, this is sort of accessed the same way as the previous slide, where some students access this independently. Sometimes they go into a class. Sometimes teachers teach this independently, but the main goal is that students in the building are getting the same information, and there's consistency throughout the building with how students are citing, how they're learning about source reliability, and things like that. So here we have an example of integration where this happens. I have over a dozen of these on my library website where I will work with a teaching team, an entire PLC in my building. The digital learning specialist and I often try to do this together with a PLC where we are discussing an entire unit, an entire research project, something larger that they're working on, and then we curate this information so teachers can focus on the content and I can help students navigate the research process. So this is sort of built so I can build it with the teachers to start, and then I will go into the classroom and co-teach it with the teachers and the DLS, and then students can access it independently on their own time when they need it for extra support as well. This is something where I'm partnering with all different classroom teachers in the entire building from science to history. It's not necessarily just one department, but it is curating an entire library of tangible items from history that students can experience the unit that they are learning about with primary sources that are tangible, that they're not just watching a video or reading about. So we have these boxes that are curated with myself and teachers, and they will kick off a unit. They will come down to the library and do research, and then also look at all of these items that we have that incorporate all of the items in the hands-on history from the 1800s all the way up to the present day. And then finally, this is still very active. You can see that the dates here started in 2023 when artificial intelligence, hit us all. I don't know if there's a better way to say that. But when we really started to navigate that process and how are we going to handle it as a building and actually, in my case, a district, I'm part of the AI committee that is district-wide, but then I work very closely with my DLS and we offer PD to all of the teachers in the entire building and all of the students in the entire building. So that way, everyone is hearing the same information. We're all on the same page and we're all on this journey together. And as you can see here, the DLS and I wanted to make it fun. So we made a concert tee and our tour dates where we hit every PLC in the entire building. So like I said, that is still ongoing. 3 years later, we are still hitting every PLC in the building and every grade level in the building as things continue to keep rolling out with artificial intelligence.
So we have a glow up ladder. You can use the bit.ly link at the bottom to access this activity. You might want to access it and then pause the video. And now is the time to discuss one collaboration you're already doing and think about how you may be able to move it up one level. So that's the whole point of our collaboration glow up activity. So pause now. And Susan, you are back on.
Sorry, I had to unmute myself here. I am back. Okay, so now it's time to take a look at the model that we developed as a result of this Delphi project and learn how it enhances current practice. So on this slide, you can see a graphical representation of our concluding model of school library collaboration. It's grounded, as you can see, on the foundation of the definition, and it defines three broad categories of collaborations, as Pam previously mentioned: operational, instructional, and strategic. Each category encompasses specific levels. Progressing along this continuum reflects a shift from transactional interactions to more sustained school-wide integration. We ascend the continuum to increase student impact. The model also identifies conditions for increased success. These conditions are necessary to enable higher levels of collaboration. As we refine the model, some of our panelists expressed concerns about the top-level assurance, and we get that. Given the variables that exist in each school or district that we have defined the conditions for success, there may be limited opportunity to achieve assurance. It is hard, but that doesn't mean that we shouldn't try it, and that is why we felt strongly about including it. Assurance is what should be, and although for most it will be aspirational, when it happens, it's inspirational. To kind of further get a sense of what assurance might look like, we decided to use this example. You may recognize this person if you're of a certain age. We're all New Englanders, so we all know who it is. It's Larry Bird, number 33, Boston Celtics. And he's kind of a hero in these parts. It's a story that's told about him and relates to assurance is that when he walked into the 1988 All-Star three-point shootout locker room and asked, "Who's coming in second?" Then he won his third straight title of the three-point king and raised his hand before the final shot was even in the basket. He said, "Practice habits were crucial to my development in basketball. I didn't play against the toughest competition in high school, but one reason I was able to do well in college was that I mastered the fundamentals. You have got to have them down before you can even think about playing." So as Larry Bird showed us, practice, practice, practice. As in anything in life, mastery comes with practice. And the more we advocate for and then demonstrate that collaboration at every grade level to provide opportunities for learners to practice and build inquiry and research skills, the more we serve our students. Assurance of the integration of content, mindset, and habits with research and inquiry skills will enable learners to achieve consistent peak performance in the real world. It moves them from beyond mere competency to continuous improvement, especially in today's high-stake environment. So who's coming in second? Not any of our students. So now for our final reflective prompt for the backstage pass to collaboration. Take a few minutes to write down or discuss one thing that you're doing well, one thing you'd like to adjust slightly, and who is one other educator you'd like to collaborate with in the future.
So if we haven't, we haven't said this, but this was challenging work for us to do collaboratively. There were times when we all thought this would have been easier to do alone. But when it was done, we all understood that the findings and conclusions are so much richer because we work together and we all contributed. The work taken together is greater than the individual work that each one of us were able to do. So we just wanted to include that. Like collaboration is hard. We recognize that. It was hard working with a big panel of people, but having all of their voices, having all of us work together really helped to make it a better final product. So um, feel free to connect with us. You can email us individually, or you could send an email to all of us. We have a link to our full research paper here, and we also cited it. We have all of our references included on these last slides. But you can see second from the top, we included a link to our research paper too. So that's everything. Thank you all so much for watching our video and learning about our research project that we're excited about. And I think that's it. Bye, everybody.